Hi everyone, welcome back to another Tourette Talk video. I am so excited. I have Sanjay here. He has been incredibly patient with me. We have been going back and forth for months now trying to get this video up and running and talking to each other. It's been a pleasure so far with just our brief encounter before we started recording. I think you're really gonna like what he has to say and like his story, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Sanjay, thank you so much for coming on my I almost said podcast, my video chat. And thank you again for being so patient. I know I've said it 100 times, but you can never say thank you enough.
Dude, it's my pleasure. When I saw that you were conducting these, and I got really excited. I followed you for so long, anyways, and even before I knew you, I was following you because I got this. I got one of your frames on my Facebook picture years ago for Tourette Syndrome Awareness, and I
Oh,
had no clue where I
cool.
got it from until I was trying to look for it again the other day, and I was like, oh God, that's Britney. So
Yeah, well, that's really cool. You never know where the connections will line up later down the road, I suppose.
yeah.
That's the good side of social media. We won't have to bring up the bad side. So I want to begin. If you could first just tell us your age now, and then when you first started noticing your tics. I start out every video like this. I think it's an important question. Your age now, and when did either you personally start noticing your body like kind of taking control over you, or when, like, if it was like your parents or something first? Because I know my mom noticed before I actually like felt it myself.
Well, I'd say so. I'm 37 now, and the first time I noticed my tics, I believe, about 6 years old, and I noticed it in school. So I was in school, and we have those fluorescent lights up top. So I
Yep.
noticed I kept blinking and squinting towards the light, and I was like, "Why am I?" First I didn't think anything of it, and
Yeah.
then it just started happening more and more, and then all of a sudden I couldn't stop it. I was doing it all the time. So that'd probably be the first tick I ever remember. And the first place I remember it was in school. And then it kind of built from there into, like, little arm movements, neck movements, facial twitches. It's definitely started with the face and then kind of moved out from there. If my mother noticed it, she probably did, to be honest, and never said anything. That's kind of how she is, unless, if she notices something's wrong, but it's not bothering you or anyone, she'll kind of just leave it alone. And if it bothers
Okay.
you, leave it up to you to go talk to her.
Yeah, that's interesting. So was was it your mom then that did you go to your mom and say, look, I have like something's happening, like I think I need to go somewhere? Or how did that like discussion start, or how did you start to go, I guess, if you saw a neurologist to get the diagnosis?
Well, let's see. So when I was that young, I honestly can't remember how it came up
That
to
makes
the
sense.
conversation we had because of, it's so long ago. But I remember, like, throughout the years after that, I know, like, as it got worse, we went to multiple doctors to kind of figure out what was going on, and they always said it was a nervous twitch, or they called it a nervous disorder, and said, "Don't worry, he'll grow out of it." And yeah, I didn't. Sure enough, I didn't grow out of it. And as the years went on, she brought me to another doctor, and he goes, it's we've seen kids do this for attention, so but
Gosh.
if but we don't know if he is or isn't. But he has this diagnosis of nervous disorder, so if it'll probably go away. And I think eventually, when I was 16, was actually when I got diagnosed, because that's when it really, everything came to a head for me. That was probably the worst year for the severity of the tics. It got so
Okay.
bad, I think I ended up having about 6 months in the hospital
Oh,
that year
wow.
collectively, because well, I got diagnosed first. My mother just kind of researched it, figured out I had it,
Yeah.
brought me to a doctor and said, "This is what he's got. Here's everything. Here's all the information I have. Look at it
Right.
and give him the diagnosis so we can get help."
Yeah.
So I'd say she diagnosed me, and
Hey,
there,
sometimes
and there,
sometimes you gotta do it that way, like.
yeah, exactly. And so then she, once that was done, like I said, it did get really bad. Like, in my 16th year, it was so bad that, like, I couldn't even stand at points. I was jumping around. I had to get up. I had to jump. I was twisting my knees and things in really awkward, painful situations, and
Yeah.
probably doing some damage to my arm and my neck and things like that. So yeah, like I said, I was kind of in and out of the hospital for my 16th year for a collective of about anywhere between 5 and 6 months. Um, so that was when it got worse. And then at that time, that's when I got diagnosed with like OCD,
Yeah.
ADHD, echolalia, right? All the other goodies that come along with it. So
Yeah, it's like a little goodie bag that we get
yeah,
when we get our
exactly,
Tourette's
exactly.
diagnosis.
And it's like, oh, that's why I can't stop touching things 3 times, right?
Yeah, exactly. Isn't it that those are almost sometimes those ones get me. I don't want to say they get me more. I guess I'm more used to like in being able to like go through the motions of my tics. It's like, but my OCD compulsion are the ones that like bother me the most. Like especially the intrusive thoughts or like I haven't done it in a little while, but it comes back every once in a while where like if I shut a door behind me and I'm pulling it like this, I have to tap on it in a certain motion and
Yeah,
everything else before I can finish walking away from that room.
all the time.
Yeah.
It's
And it
like,
just it can be it's like so aggravating. Like I brush it off for the most part, unless it's a terrible day. Because don't get me wrong, I have those days where I'm just like, this is just the worst. But at the same time, I'm like, this is so annoying. Why
yeah,
do I have to do this?
yeah, no, definitely. And like, it's funny because a couple of my friends sometimes they'll ask me like I don't have those. Can you explain it?
Yeah.
I'll tell them it's really hard to explain, but I live my life by odds and triangles. And like triangles, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, it's really strange, right? Like
Yeah.
one of the things I do, and I had to once I told my friend, he goes, that makes sense because you always. Anyways, I'll tell you. So I when I go up the stairs, I tend one of the things is I don't like to turn left.
Oh, okay.
So when I'm going up or downstairs, what I'll try to do is I'll try to speed up ahead of my friend if it's going left, and I'll get to the top and I have to unspin. So if I turn left in front of them, I'll have to hold it in, and eventually when I'm by myself or if I can get away from them, I'll start spinning on the stairs. So I kind of even myself out. But going to the
Yeah.
right is no problem,
Yeah.
right? And it drives me crazy because I would consider myself a really logical thinker.
Hmm.
So when you have something that happens that's so illogical, and you know that nothing's going to happen if you don't do it, but you have no choice. You can't
Right.
function if you don't. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, and the weirdest thing too is like, and what I don't think a lot of people realize, and I've touched on this, I think almost every video, because I always like to make sure people know, like, um, because I know when a lot of people talk with Tourette syndrome, we pick up on each other's tics, or it'll trigger us to tick more, so you might see us ticking in similar ways, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But even when you're just saying that, I feel like I felt something just like in the pit of my stomach. I'm like, man, I'm like, that makes sense to me. Like, because in my mind, like it made sense, but didn't make sense, which
Yeah.
I'm sure you understand what I mean by that.
Yep.
Like, because and in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm like, don't think about that too much, because please do not start. Don't add another thing to your repertoire of OCD compulsions. My biggest, but my worst one is biting my lip. It's just a constant because I can't stand. What happened? It's like a double-edged sword and a domino effect because I'll bite my lip and then I'll feel where I bit it, but I don't like the way that feels. So then I have to bite it more because I don't like the way it feels, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Like, and next thing I know, like my lips bleeding because I'm picking and biting at it so much, and I'm still going. Like I've had to ask my husband, like, you need to tell me to stop when you see me doing it. Like I'm asking you, like, don't ever do that in like any other circumstance. Like don't tell me to stop taking or anything, which he never would.
Yeah.
But like with that one, like I'm hurting myself. So I'm like, I need you to like, I almost get in like a trance with it. I'm like, I need you to like say it so it like pulls me out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's no, I get it. I get it too. Like even yeah, there's some of them that are bad, right? Especially the ones where you're, like you said, you're hurting yourself, and if you bite the inside of your cheek, right, and
Yeah,
you feel that bump, and then you got to keep going for it. It drives you
right.
crazy. Or I'll have a bad one where if I accidentally touch the barbecue or the hot pan, it's like I'm sitting there and I'm just staring at it. I'm like, so I know I've got to touch it a couple more times.
Oh.
This isn't going to be fun. And you just go for it. It's like, oh God, right? So,
Oh yeah, that's a bad one.
yeah, but what are you going to do? Just go really quick.
Yeah, maybe you touch it fast enough and won't keep the burn on your finger.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I've become a master of that over the years. So I'm pretty efficient at it now.
Yeah. It's that, or you've built up so much callus on your fingers from burning yourself
Exactly.
that many times. Maybe a little bit of both, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So you said, to circle back just a little, that your 16th year was probably one of your worst ones. Did that year end up at all, if you don't want to talk about that, because I know some people are a little weird about medications and stuff, but did it end you up on any medications for your tics that helped, or did they find other ways to try and help you?
You know, so actually then that is when I started going on medications, and I probably went through majority of what they were using at that time.
Yeah.
Um, I can't even remember all the names of them now, but I know like there was a bunch. We find that a lot of them didn't work at the beginning, and some of the adverse side effects ended up being kind of worse than what they were treating.
Right.
Um, well, because you know they pull them from antipsychotics primarily, right?
Right.
Then we fell across risperidone, and I know some people have success with it, some people don't.
Hmm.
For me, it tended to really control my tics, which were probably one of the main things back then, because that was what was really debilitating at the time. But it made me, I called it like maybe like a zombie. You lost emotion. Like
Right.
I'm someone that, you know, if I'm happy, I'm really happy. Like I get my emotions, and they kind of, you can see it.
Yes.
But it came to the
Hard on
point,
receive type of person.
yeah,
I
exactly. But
I
what I
can
found was,
relate.
I, I kind of, I lost that. I was just kind of going around. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I was just kind of
Yeah.
there. And I did that for years. And then at about, I think 18, I just said, you know what, enough's enough. My tics are low enough that I can come off now.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then what I've done since then, because I do have bad periods and good periods, nothing like when I was 16. But what I've done from then is I've really learned to suppress, and I know, and even on my channel, I don't advocate it. I say, you know, you shouldn't have to, and I really hope you don't.
Yes.
So I hate to say it, but it's kind of what I do, and I learned to control it more or less, to
Yeah.
the point that, yeah, I didn't really need the medication anymore.
Yeah, I think all of us can relate to not advocating for suppressing, but we all still do it. I think it's more that natural thing where, you don't want to be the person that can't sit still. You don't want to be the person that's doing all these things and people wondering, like, and I hate saying what's wrong with you because there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with us. Um, but it's that thing where, like, I would never tell somebody to suppress your tics. I'm like, you need to find a place and you need to find your people that you can tick freely around. Like my husband, I can tick freely around, and I think my tics come out more because of it, just because I know I'm in that safe place and my mind subconsciously knows, like, you're okay here to do whatever your body needs to do. The same with like my family and everything. But then at the same time, when I'm out in public, like, I try not to, but I know how bad that is at the same time. I'm like, you're going against everything you tell people. I tell people all the time, obviously, to accept it. And it's not because I don't accept it. It's just sometimes it's just that natural instinct. Like, try
it's
not to do
easier.
this.
It's easier, like, I guess, just to interact with people sometimes. You, like you said, you shouldn't have to, but it's like, okay, you know what, if I don't do it, it's gonna make, I don't have to deal with the looks or the questions or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. I guess it kind of depends on my day or my mood at that time
Yeah,
of how I want to do it. Cause even when people ask, like, it depends on like how big the tick was. If I decide to, like, all right, do I want to go into the whole spiel of Tourette? I want to teach everybody about Tourette syndrome, obviously my almost everything social media platform I have is dedicated to Tourette syndrome. However, there's just some days where I'm like, I don't want to explain myself today, so I'm just gonna, like, go with the flow, be like, oh, I was tripping, I was dancing in my seat,
yeah. Yeah, no,
stretching, like, and something.
yeah. Well, it was funny because I used to have really, really long hair once upon a time, and so all my head ticks, people would always think I was just, you know, I was brushing the hair out of my face,
Yeah.
right? Or anything I did over here, that, oh, you should tie your hair back. Oh, I should, right? So I,
Like,
I
good point. I'll
completely,
try that next time. Completely get that. I was just
yeah,
going to circle back just a minute because I really like that you brought up to the fact when you're talking about your medications, how the side effects are sometimes worse than the relief that they might bring with Tourette syndrome. And I wanted to really reiterate that point because I do talk about that from time to time on my pages or everything, because a lot of the biggest question is like, well, isn't there a medicine that you can take, or isn't there um, a medication or something that can help you? And I always have to say, like, there are, but for me, I have a mild case, so I'm not on it anymore. I used to be when I was in high school and in college, because obviously college was a really stressful time. But I always try to tell them, like, sometimes like people don't have that option. They can try it, and it, like you said, it can be years of this trial and error, and then you lose that many years of your life trying to figure out what medication works, or deciding like, all right, I'll deal with these side effects because I won't tick anymore. And I
Yeah.
think that's just such a strong point, because especially coming from you, because it seems like you've tried a couple different ones, where I've only tried two. And I'll be honest, I didn't try hard. I shouldn't say I didn't try hard enough. I was on Topamax. That was what I was on my senior year of high school, because it got really bad. I was getting ready for college, all this stuff. Like, school was ending, my dance career, quote unquote, like at my dance studio, was
Yeah.
ending. And that was my safe place. That was where I didn't tick. So it was really sad for me, and I loved it just in general. So it got really bad, and it got to a point where I was crying like in my mom's lap at 18 years old, like every day. And I finally told her, like, look, I think I need something now, because she always left that up to me. That was my decision. If I wanted to try medication, then we could go down that route. But if I didn't think I needed it, then she wasn't going to push it, which I was thankful for. And then in college, it got really bad, because obviously I was going to college, I was working full time, and I was taking full time scheduling for college. At one point in college, I got engaged, so we were planning a wedding, and then for whatever reason we decided to buy a house as well. So all of these things were happening at one time. And so obviously, as somebody with Tourette syndrome, you can understand how bad my tics were getting. So I
Yeah.
continuously kept upping my medication, because my doctor said I could up it as I needed it. So finally I made an appointment. I'm like, I think I need something different, because I just keep upping this, and I don't want to just keep upping medication like all willy-nilly, because this is obviously stuff going into my body, and it's not for Tourette syndrome, it's for migraines and other things like that. So she put me on something else, and I tried it, and I started having really bad panic attacks. Like, very bad. I couldn't catch my breath, and like I would start ticking. It was like a tick attack that turned into a panic attack, and it was very scary for me. And I have anxiety and panic attacks every now and then now, but at that time, like, they were increased like exponentially. So I did not give it a lot of time. I decided at that point, I'm like, I will take my Topamax back, please. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. I remember one of the first ones I took was I know there's multiple names to every medication, and this was one that it was called Nitamin, and I can't remember what the common name for it was. And I remember taking it, and it did help a little bit with the tics, but then all of a sudden I slipped into a very deep depression.
Oh,
And that wasn't a common thing for me. So I remember one day my mom decided to go look at the side effects of this thing, and she's like, okay, well, they said one of the effects are suicidal tendencies. Okay, we're off this, right?
oh man, that
And
just gave me chills, like the bad
and
kind.
yeah, I know, and that's what it was. And that was one of the times I was hospitalized while I was 16 too, was taking that medication, and we found out like the second I came off of it, all of a sudden I felt great again, right? So
Wow, that's so crazy. Isn't it crazy how they can affect us in so many ways? Like,
yeah,
it's just, it's
and then for someone else it might work perfectly, right?
right. And they could have not one single bad side effect from it, or at
Yes,
least not that one.
yeah,
And it's just crazy to me. And I think that's why I really wanted to come back and circle back, and I wanted to make sure we talked about that again for those watching that might not have Tourette syndrome, or um, anybody else going through that medication trial and error, that there are things out there that can work for some people. And again, like, we're all different. Like, we have different tics, our bodies are different, we have different makeup. So like, my Topamax for me might have worked for me, it might not have worked for you, but it could work for the next person. So I always like to bring that up if people are comfortable talking about it, because I know I had a hard time accepting the fact that I even needed medication. I hated it. I've always considered myself to be this strong person, and in my mind, I just kept telling myself, like, you're letting it win if you get on medication. And I know that's not true. I would never sit here and tell you that. I would say, no, that's a strong choice to get on medication. It's strong admitting that you need help.
yeah.
I'd say the complete opposite to anybody else. And I full heartedly believe that, but it was me. So obviously I'm going to be hard on myself, because if there's anything I'm great at, it's being hard on myself.
Oh, yeah, like I kind of done the same thing. Like, no, if you need it, get it. Now, remember at that time when I was 16, I was like, okay, we got to get on it. I just need this to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also you're in high. I guess I went on it a bit younger, but you're in high school. Already had a chip on my shoulder. right?
Yeah.
'Cause all of a sudden you're there and people see it twitching and you're getting to the point where you've got to jump out of your seat and jump around. It's like, okay, this has to stop. I can't go through
Right.
this through all my high school life. So
Right. And that's, I think we get to that point unless we like start it young, like young. I think
yeah,
it is that it just gets to that point where just like, it's that breaking point. I can't do this anymore. I can't cry every day to my mother because I can't stop moving. I needed some kind of help. And if it was an option out there for me, then I was going to give it a shot. If it didn't work, it didn't work, but at least I tried.
yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, moving on from medication, so we don't just make this whole video about medication and treatment options. You mentioned earlier your wife. How, if you don't mind me asking, how you met her and how Tourette syndrome has come into play? Has it affected anything with your relationship? Did you tell her right away? Did she already know?
So I met her. Um, it was actually like at an outdoor dance event.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and I
I
went
love
with
that.
yeah. So I went. So it was like a music festival, and one of my friends called me down, and I guess she knew the group of friends that had called me,
Yeah.
and so I met her down there, and then we started hanging out, and I probably called her a couple days later, and I guess that was the beginning of where we are now.
Yeah.
We were actually really young, so we have been together. I was 18 and she was 16 when we started dating, so from high
Wow.
school.
Yeah. So your high school
Yeah,
sweethearts.
yeah, we broke that mold, and yeah, so we've been there. I think I told her probably pretty. It was pretty close to the very beginning. Probably
Yeah.
the first or second time we met, I probably mentioned it. I
Hmm.
can't remember exactly, but I know it was early on. Um, just to get it out of the way,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So yeah, so I did that, and she's been pretty understanding of it. I'm sure she doesn't say, but I'm sure there's some aspects of Tourette's that probably drives her crazy, like procrastination when it comes to doing housework. like, or like, it's like when I am doing housework, like she's really focused. So if she goes, okay, we've got to do this task, she'll focus down and she'll do that task. With me, I'll do a little bit of task A, then a little bit of task B and task C, and at the end of it, everything looks like worse and nothing's done. Right? So yeah, I'd say I probably don't pull my weight, although I do try. So so but no, she's pretty understanding, and I'd say she's probably one of like my fiercest advocates.
Oh,
Like,
good.
if we're out on the road, we're in a restaurant, if someone looks at me, or yeah, kids are famous for it, right?
Yes.
Because they don't understand, so they'll look at
Right.
something, they'll find it funny, right? And it's like, okay, I hope my wife doesn't see this. Or like things like that. Like she's really sweet, but if she will not tolerate people mimicking or making fun of me, which is funny.
Yeah, that's really good though. Like you always want somebody like that in your corner,
Yeah, yeah,
especially obviously if it's your husband or wife.
yeah.
You want somebody that's going to be advocating and there to have your back no matter what.
It's
My husband.
it's crazy. Like at work, I get some people at I guess I kind of do get questions at work as well, but no one's so open. No one's really that rude about it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I also deal with I interact with customers all day, and I go into
Okay.
customers' homes as well as part of my job. And
Okay.
some of the questions and some of the things they say is wild, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember one time my boss decided to drive the job site, make sure everything was going well, and I was finishing up, and as I walked out, the customer walked out with me, and she turned around. She said, "So why do you do that?" I said, "Do what?" And she starts jerking her head,
Yeah.
and my boss was there, and I think he must have choked. But I was like, "Oh, I have Tourette syndrome. Have you ever heard of it?" And she goes, "No, I haven't." But she goes, "You know what would help?" I said, "What?" She goes, "Well, if you just stop doing it, then you won't have it anymore." And I looked at her, and I'm like, "Do you know what, miss?" I'm like, "That's a really amazing idea. I've never tried it, but I'm going to tonight. Thank you for that." And she's happy. She thinks she helped me, I guess. She was older. I think she really didn't understand it.
Right.
So I turned around, and my manager was literally like open mouthed, right? And he's like, number one, that was an amazing way of handling it. Number two, he
Yeah.
goes, that was crazy. Do you actually get that a lot? I was like, more than you know, probably
Yeah.
like, at least 5 or 10 times, like 10 times a week. So
Yeah.
I kind of just get used to it now, but I have so many stories kind of like that.
Right. And that's what's crazy. That's so with your job, if you don't, again, if you don't mind me asking, did you, because some people ask me this, and I try to find a way to bring up my Tourette syndrome in an interview every time, if it can like flow like
Yeah.
naturally. I try not to be like, oh, and by the way, I have Tourette syndrome, because I want it to sound, in my opinion, if I say it as naturally as possible, they'll take it more naturally as well.
Yeah.
Even if they don't know that much about it, even if all they know or all they think is that I'm going to swear. I do sometimes after the interview, every once in a while, I'll question myself. Like, I'm not, because you always like rethink about the interview, like after you had it, like I'll think about this. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have said that. What if they don't hire me because I have Tourette syndrome? But then I go back and I'm like, well, if they don't hire me because I have Tourette syndrome, then they're jerks and I want to work there anyway. And like, I have this monologue going on. But again, I want to tell them then, because it's just, in my opinion, it makes it a lot easier. So are you kind of similar? Did you do the same thing, or how did they take it?
Well, with this job, I've had this job now for 14 years,
Mm-hmm.
so it's been
Wow.
quite a while. When I came in, because of the nature of it, I felt I had to say it right away because, like I said,
Okay.
so I'm in people's homes a lot, so I knew that would come into play. But I have to drive a work truck every day.
Yeah.
If they saw me ticking away in there, I could just imagine if I didn't mention it, they might be like, do we want to hand our keys to this guy, right?
Right.
So I had to come right out. I was like, we went through it, and I said, just to let you know, I do have Tourette syndrome, but it shouldn't affect my ability to drive or do this job. So I've
Yeah.
been driving since I was 16. So that kind of I guess kind of allayed it. Plus, during the training period, you actually had to go with third-party driving instructors, and they take
Okay.
everyone out. So I had to tell them the same thing, and I scored pretty well. So I guess they figured it didn't stop me so much, which it looks like it would, because if you like, my tics are pretty like obvious,
Mm-hmm.
but you know how I guess with some of it too, when you have situational tics. So like when I get into my truck, all of a sudden, my neck tics, they change. They're still neck tics, but now
Right.
I twitch towards my mirrors. So I scan my mirrors like an
Oh, so you're
insane
probably more
amount.
safe
Right?
than anybody else on the road.
So they've kind of like altered into that, and like my foot twitches,
Yeah.
because I'll bounce my feet or I'll twitch my toes. I tend to direct them all into my left leg because it's an automatic truck. So my left leg's always shaking and going, and my hand twitches. I'll
Okay.
put one on the shifter and I'll twitch around the shifting knob,
Yeah.
and I'll do things like that. And you get out and they're a bit worse after, but it allows me to actually function, right?
Yeah.
And
100%. So do
yeah,
you find when you start, like, because you said you're a technician, so when you're working on things or doing whatever you do as a technician, forgive my ignorance, doesn't matter. But do you find that they start to slow down then? Because like that's when you're starting to like focus and zero in.
um, it depends on the day. A lot of the
Okay.
time, yeah. So I'd say, well, I'm a tech for I work for one of the bigger telecommunications companies in Canada. So I install like phone, internet, TV.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, so I kind of like in people's backyards, up poles, all of that.
Right. You're
What
the
I find
emergency
is,
call when the internet went out and we have nothing else to do because we all rely on internet so badly.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, we got
Embarrassingly enough,
it.
I'm one of them. I'm like, why does my internet work?
Yeah, we run into really irate customers
Yeah.
sometimes, and I
I'm
get
not
it though,
irate to
because
them. I guide it towards my husband. Then
yeah,
he calls.
take care of this
Yeah.
now. Right? Yeah, like so what I try to do is I'll try to get it out as much as I can away from the customer. So like
Okay.
when I get out of my truck, like normally what I'll do is I'll get out of my truck, walk around to the side that they can't see me on, that I'm blocked, and I'll get them all out as much as I can, or what I can in the truck and out of the truck. And then I'll go into the home, and the little ones, I'll try to hold them back and suppress as much as I can when
Yeah.
I'm there, just to avoid any situations.
Right.
But if I find that it's building up, I'll just find a reason to go outside.
Okay.
I've got to get something, or I just need a minute, and I'll
Yeah.
just hop outside and then let them out as much as I can, and let the vocal tics out, and then come on back in and keep
Right.
going.
I think that's really good information for other people to have too, because it is important to be able to find a way to excuse yourself if you feel like you need to. And that's
Yeah,
why I try to like let my manager and stuff know, because I'll just tell her like I was like, for the most part, I'm like, you're probably not even going to realize that I'm doing it. I take a lot with like my stomach when I'm at work, or my neck, and it looks like I'm stretching. And I sit right next to my manager at work. So I just want to tell her like, I might have to just tell you like, I need to go take like 15, like I'm gonna go take a walk, I'm gonna go. Thankfully we have a lot of these like little like rooms in our building so that I could go and just find one. The only problem is they have all glass doors, so they're not really that helpful if it's a tick situation. I haven't had to use one for one of that. I'd probably go to the bathroom instead, because it's not like, because I'm not going to get away. It's only going to make it worse if I'm standing there in that room and
in
everybody
a
walking.
window. Yeah.
Yeah. But I know that I can just tell her like, look, like my tics, my Tourette's are really bad today, and it hasn't happened yet, knock on wood, but she knows I have it. And I try to explain like some days are worse than others. Like I could come in here, I could have been fine like this whole year and a half that I've been with the company, but tomorrow could be like the worst day ever. And I just need you to understand like that's how quickly it can change. Like it could change in the middle of the day. I don't know what my body's ever going to do, because who knows with like hormonal changes and everything else, and just it's all over the place. So I always try to I try to squeeze it in those conversations where it's almost natural. It's hard to sometimes, like especially if you've been working with somebody for so long, be like, oh yeah, by the way, like
Yeah.
I have Tourette's syndrome.
Like I think there's like some people I've known for years who still don't know I have it, and they kind of find out just because I work with so many people.
Yeah,
And so sometimes, also someone will finally notice what I'm doing and be like, "Why are you doing that?" I'm like, "Oh, I have Tourette syndrome." He's like,
yeah,
"Really?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "But I've never heard you swear."
right,
Well, let me tell you.
right. Well, we're gonna get into it now. I'm gonna give you a little education lesson here.
Yeah, yeah, because that seems to be one of the biggest misconceptions is that
Yes.
swearing's a prerequisite.
Right. And you have to. And the thing that gets me is not necessarily people saying, well, I've never heard you swear. They ask me if I swear all the time. And it'll be the same situation. Like, you've worked with me for how long? Like, have you ever, like, if you hear me swearing, it's because I'm like irrationally angry.
Yeah,
Like, I'm really mad because I don't try to keep it part of my repertoire. Like, I just don't, which is crazy because I love my dad. Like, there's nothing like bad about him, but he swore a lot when I grew up. So you would think,
a lot of good people do.
yeah,
It's just something they do.
yeah, you would think I would, but I don't. Like for me, I don't know. It's weird for me, and I'm 30 years old, but I still find it to be in my mind like kind of disrespectful to do it around my parents or anybody. And I've spent most of my time with like my parents and my family, so it just never really became part of my conversation, I guess. And then there's also that part of me too, I think subconsciously is like I don't want to do it because the people that just kind of know I have Tourette syndrome but don't know me, I don't want them to think to engage in the stigma, I guess. I
Yeah,
don't want to perpetuate it even more so, because I also don't want it to keep turning into that joke for those that do live with it, and how much of a struggle it has to be swearing, not only saying things, like it's one thing to do things with your body that you don't want to do, but saying things, I only have a few vocal tics, and the ones that come out where they're like words and stuff, like I repeat them to myself, those are the ones that are scarier to me. It's like not moving my body, or moving my body is one thing, but like my vocal box, like something that to me has to go through my brain for me to be able to stop it. And obviously I know I can't. I have Tourette syndrome, I know.
it's gonna come out.
Yeah, but I just don't, so many people just don't realize like that aspect of it. I think they just think that part where they automatically go to that thing where like, well, I could say anything I want to anybody. I'm like, first of all, no, you can't. And second of all, in today's world, are you nuts? Like, you think that we can just get away with anything? Like, everybody's offended by something today, which is fine. Like, I'm glad that people are standing up for things and
Yeah,
making, but if you think I can go around swearing and people aren't going to get offended or mad at me, then you got another thing coming, especially if it's like a grocery store and there's a child around.
yeah, it's like, yeah, it would be one of the worst things, right? Like, I have echolalia and palilalia. Not so bad. And I've learned to actually get away with whispering everything.
Yeah.
So if I'm like watching a movie and you're sitting really close to me, you just hear me kind of
Yeah.
going away, but as
Yeah.
soon as you're a foot away, you can't hear anything, right?
Right.
But it's the awkward one is then all of a sudden it's they'll say a swear word in the phrase, and then you start doing that, and it's like, oh God, I hope this
Yeah.
doesn't turn into something else.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And
It's
yeah,
just.
it's definitely scary because it's one of
Mhm.
those things that you don't want to say something. Like I said, it's with the ticks, it it's hard anyways, but your vocal box, it adds a whole different dynamic to it.
Yeah, it seems like so much more, even as somebody, because, and like you said, like things are like, it's so hard to explain to somebody, like when you
Yeah.
have a tick, like, because I always try to tell them, like, sometimes I can feel it when it's about to happen, like, and it's just this weird pit in my stomach half the
Yeah.
time, or I start to feel pressure because, like, I've moved, like, you'll see,
Yeah.
and of course I'm thinking about it now, so it's happening. I'll move my shoulders. So I start to feel like that pressure almost in my shoulders. And that's when I know it's about to happen. But then other times I don't know what's going to happen, or that sometimes I don't realize I'm doing it. Most of the time I know I'm doing it, but I don't know that it's about to happen. My body just does it. And I think what's hard for people on the outside of Tourette syndrome to understand is when you do tell them, like, I can feel it like coming on, that they do think, like, along with, if you tell them that you can suppress it, they just think, like, well, if you can feel it and you know it's going to happen, then you should be able to just not do it. And
Yeah.
it's like, you would think that, but Tourette syndrome doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that I can't control what my body's doing, but it is what it is. Like, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I've gotten that before too. It's so strange because it's so hard to understand the premonitory urge if
Yes.
you don't actually have it, and
Mhm.
there's no real comparison
No.
for, I guess, for people who don't have it. So
Hmm.
like the best I've been able to come up with or explain, I don't even know if I came up. I've been saying it for so long, I don't know where I got it from, but I always referenced it to blinking, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna blink. You can keep your eyes open if you try,
Yeah.
but then you're gonna feel a lot of discomfort.
Right.
You can still keep it open. Eventually you're going to blink. You can't help it. And when you
Mhm.
do, you're not just gonna blink once, you're going to keep blinking, right? You're going
Right.
to blink 30 times now because your eyes are raw. So it's kind of like, it's not the same thing at all, but it's kind of how it references like the closest thing I can to maybe someone who doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I kind of get it, right? To some
Yeah.
degree, and kind
I've
of puts
used,
it into some sort of perspective.
yeah, I've used that one. And then I've also, sometimes I'll tell them, like, but I'm nervous, like, that maybe it is just a Tourette thing sometimes when I use this as an excuse, or not an excuse, as an example.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a room, like, and it's quiet, like in school, you would hear somebody cough, and then all of a sudden you feel like you have to cough because you heard somebody coughing. And I try to tell them that, and most people have been like have understood that part of it, because sometimes I'm like, well, maybe this is just like something I do because I have Tourette syndrome. So my comparison is not going to work, and it's only going to confuse them further.
It's really interesting. And I guess there's different ways to explain it, but like we were saying before, there's no, you can't really explain it. You just
Yeah.
kind of do your best, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where the struggle is, I think. And I think people do their best to understand, because
Yeah.
we're doing our best with explaining it. Because that's the thing. Obviously, you and I have lived with it for so long now. If we can't come up with like a concrete explanation, then
Yeah. It's like,
I don't know if anybody ever will. But
yeah, but what are you going to do, right? Just do the
right,
best we can and keep raising awareness.
right, exactly. That's the best thing we can do, and the thing I'm very passionate about. And I know, speaking of that, I do know that you also have a YouTube channel as well, correct?
Yeah, I do. It's
Um,
small,
yeah.
really small, yeah, quite small,
What
but I try.
what is the handle and everything to get to that, if people were wanting to check out your videos and everything?
It's called Tourette Talk with J Twitch. So
Okay.
yeah, JAY and then Twitch.
Okay, perfect.
That's the name of the channel.
Yeah, I always like to throw those in there so I can let everybody know. Because obviously, if somebody's an advocate for Tourette syndrome, I always want to bring that up and bring that to light when I'm talking to them. And on that topic, what made you want to even start doing the YouTube videos and everything? Like, what made you decide, like, all right, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to tell people about this?
Um, so to be honest, I've thought about it for years, probably 3 or 4 years at least. I've wanted to do it. I kept telling
Mhm.
my wife, I'm going to do this eventually. I
Yeah.
really want to. And she just say, okay, well, go do it, right? Like
Right? I've
be
had
good
very
at it.
similar conversations with my husband.
Yeah, yeah, and I did this for years, and then I finally just came to a head and said, okay, you know what, I'm gonna have to do it sometime, so I might as well just do it now and get going.
Yeah.
And really to like, you know, it was to spread awareness because I very rarely come into contact with like physically in person with people who have Tourette's as well.
Right.
But you know, throughout my job, I have come into contact with people who know people with Tourette's. So
Yeah.
that kind of said, okay, you know what, maybe someone will get some value out of this.
Right.
And that's when I started doing the videos. And my I don't have a lot posted there yet. I'm not super frequent. I am trying to do better. But I remember my first few I was doing, and I put one of them up on Tourette's Facebook page, just say like, what do you guys think of this?
Yeah.
And I remember a bit of the feedback I got was, don't we kind of we like what you're doing. Mind you, at this, I'm super nervous when I do these videos, even to this day.
Yeah.
Like the amount I twitch before and after these videos is obscene, right? So what I did is I did my first couple of videos, and as I did them, I went in and I actually edited out about 90% of the ticks that filtered in. I was like, I'm
Okay.
going to turn a 3-minute video into an 8-minute video of me ticking and not actually speaking. And so when I posted it, someone on the group turned around and said, it doesn't even, I don't see you ticking. You don't really look relatable. I said, oh, I'm actually cutting them out. I should probably stop that.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I was cutting them out, I think too, is because I suppressed so much in
Mhm.
public and around the people I know. Um, no one has ever actually seen it really bad, and
Yeah.
I just want to be seen as that guy, I guess, and I don't know why. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to stop, you know, suppress it like I normally would, but not start cutting out what I can't.
Yeah.
And my last few videos now, I've just kind of gotten away from that and said, you know, forget it, this is me.
Yep.
But it is hard and it does make me nervous, but I did it essentially, you know, for just to bring awareness to as much as I can,
Hmm.
and perspective,
Yes,
right?
100%.
So
I think perspective is so important. That's why I've
yeah,
been doing these videos because I want people. I started thinking about it, and obviously, I make videos a decent amount. I've gotten much better at being more frequent this year, so that does take time with trying to find the time to like be more frequent with them, and they do get easier. I used to hate hearing my voice on playback if I did edit it at all, which for the most part, these are the only videos that I edit. Unless my dog comes like barking in the room or something, I generally don't edit anything out. Even if they just walk in, if my husband's not home, I tend to leave the door open because they have separation anxiety. It's a whole thing. But but they'll come in the background and I'll just say like, oh, sorry about my dogs. But because I just like, for one, I don't, maybe it's the lazy part of me. I don't feel like editing if I don't have to.
yeah.
But then too, like it's like the same thing. Like it's through a realization where you're just like, you know what, this is what I am. Like I'm talking about Tourette syndrome and I have Tourette's. And if you don't like it, there's literally millions of other videos that you can go and watch on YouTube.
Yeah, I actually started feeling, it's funny, so I started feeling a lot better about doing the videos actually when I just let it go and I put it
Right?
out. I remember the first one I put out, the first one like where I wasn't holding them back, I was sitting there for probably about 2 days with it. Just, you know, all I had to do was hit upload. I was like, I don't know, should I? And then, you know,
Right?
you're so nervous and then you
Yes.
finally hit it. And I didn't tell anyone it was out there at first. And then I was like, okay, a week's gone by. I should probably tell people I did this.
Yeah. I was kind of similar. It wasn't a
Yeah,
couple of days. I made the video and the same thing, like I said, I kept telling my husband, I'm like, I'm gonna make videos. I'm gonna do YouTube videos. He's like, you gotta just do it. He's like, you just have to do it. So finally I like one Friday night, I'm like, I'm gonna go make this video. Like I'm gonna go make it. I made it. We went out to dinner or something, and I had it loading while we were out to dinner, and I just had it there, and I just had my mouse hovering over that upload or post, publish, whatever the button was, and he's like sleeping next to me. It's probably midnight, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna hit it. And so I did it, and so I posted it then. Like I put it on my Facebook. I'm like, I'm just gonna do this now so I can go to sleep. Like I don't have to worry about it. Like we'll see what happens. I'm like, 2 people might watch it. I don't know. And he woke me up the next day because he worked on Saturdays and I didn't. And he's like, have you been on Facebook yet? And I'm like, no, I literally just woke up. And he's like, you should go on there. He's like, there's a lot of people supporting you and like what you did. And I'm like, no, there's not. I'm like, what? My mom? But then
all of our biggest supporters, right?
right. And then there was these other people that like I haven't talked to in a while sharing it. And that like gave me that motivation to like keep doing it. now like not as many people like that I see on Facebook share it, but I know like my reach is getting bigger, and that's what
Yeah.
it really feels good. Like I love knowing like even if I made all of these videos and literally only one person told me that I helped them, then I would have found myself successful in it.
Yeah.
Because that's all I wanted to do was help people. Like I always felt like I always say like I was given Tourette's. I believe I was given Tourette syndrome for a reason. And over the years, I feel like that reason has become more and more true. I feel like I have a mild case, so I almost like feel like it's like my duty to like talk about it for those that feel like they can't or don't want to. Like I got to get that awareness out there. And then there's that other part of me that's just like, if I don't, who will? I know there's a million advocates out there, but like if I don't want to do the work, then why do I expect somebody else to do it for me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not that I think there's anything wrong with not doing it. Again, it's just that whole heart of myself in my mind thing. But it got me to start, which was really cool.
Yeah. And that's like, yeah, kind of me too. Just a whole, try to give awareness and perspective, and if I can explain in a way that like can help someone understand it as
Yeah.
well. Help someone understand what their kid's going through, or what their friend's going through, or their spouse. Then it's better for everyone, right? And I
Right.
kind of went into what the same thing. If I'm able to help, even a small amount of people, then it's worth it.
100%. And that's why I wanted to bring obviously you on too. I can tell that you're passionate about it as well. And just the sheer fact of like my story can only get so far, I think, to some people. And it only explains this one story of Tourette syndrome, which is fine. That's my life. It's obviously the easiest thing for me to talk about. I lived it. And I mean, I still come to like brain fogs every once in a while. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to make the video about this week. And that's why you won't see videos posted sometimes, because I can't think of an idea.
It's really tough to to stick to one just one specific thing and come up with an endless amount of content, right?
Right, exactly. And this way too, it gets me to talk to people. Like I get to share your story, and I get your story gets to help somebody else that relates to your what you went through, or your tics in particular, or your job while you tick, all that kind of stuff. Like you never know what slight little difference can make somebody connect to it more. And then of course I lost what I was gonna say. The basis of I remember now. It's also cool because like you said, I don't have like I very rarely have gotten in contact in person, like face to face with somebody with Tourette syndrome. So generally I'm the only one in the room doing whatever I'm doing. Like I'm the only one in the room that truly understands it and gets it. So these videos have really been honestly helpful for me too, because it's so nice to hear like a me too. I do that too. Or I can understand what you're saying because of A, B, and C. Like,
Yeah.
We don't get that very often as people with Tourette syndrome if we're not around that very often.
Yes. Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
So
And
true.
I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's funny. So I've actually been watching. I've watched almost every one of your videos, but with some of them, I know like my tics are bad. Sometimes I'll have to watch it in pieces because I'll
Yeah.
watch it, and then all of a sudden I start picking up the tics of you and the interviewee, and like
Yeah.
you and whoever you're chatting with, and I'm like, okay, do you know what? I'm gonna have to pause this and come back to it later.
Right. Yeah, I completely understand 100%. And that's why even after I do them sometimes, like I'll come out and I tell my husband, like, because I did the one with Tourette's cop who ticks a lot. And I told him, I was like, that was probably the most I've ever ticked in a video. And not meaning anything bad by it by any means. It's just, I
Oh
mean,
no,
like,
it
we feed off
happens.
each other.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I tick more in these videos than my other videos. So it's almost helpful in that way too, because then people see more of my life with Tourette syndrome, because they're
Yeah.
actually seeing more of the variety. Because I kind of tick the same way every time when I do my own videos. And I think it's because, again, subconsciously, I know that's how I ticked in my videos. So then I'm thinking about it. And so then I have to do it,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you understand.
Oh no, definitely.
So when I do these videos, like, it is more like, because it's just us like talking and ticking and like going through the motions, and it's nice. Like, it's nice to like, I don't know, the
To
other
kind of
person
go
gets
on and not think about anything, right? Like,
right.
not think about the tics you're doing in the last video or this stuff.
Yeah, wondering like if the other person or the other person on the other side of the screen believes me, which isn't generally a big worry of mine, but like I've gotten accused of it a handful of times. So it is kind of in the back of my mind.
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely get it. Um, it's really interesting the stuff you'll get accused of, I guess, right?
Hmm.
And it's it's one of those things, especially when you're younger, people saying, you're doing it for attention. It's like, do you think I want this attention?
Right? And that's the thing, like somebody else said that on one of my videos too. That's so interesting. Like, you think I would go this long of my day doing this, feeling this pain and this muscle fatigue just for you to pay attention to me?
It's like, yeah, there's better ways to get attention.
Yes, 100%. So I want to make sure I ask this other question. This is my one of my last couple questions for you is what helps, if there is anything, because I always like to make sure I bring this up because like I said earlier, dance really helped me growing up with my Tourette syndrome. If I had a bad day and I knew I had dance that night, I knew all I had to do was make it to that studio because I wouldn't tic. So many people I danced with, so many teachers never even knew I had Tourette syndrome. They were shocked to find out because
Yeah,
that was my safe area, especially on the stage. Like the stage was my happy place. You would think hundreds of people watching me would be my unhappy place, but I loved it. I fed off of it. It gave me an energy and it gave me a rush that I love and I miss every single day because I danced for 20 years. So most of my life. Was there anything like that you do that helps you, that does that? Does it make it go away completely? Just a little? Like,
um,
what do you turn to?
I would say there's probably nothing that I can think of off the top of my head that gets rid of it completely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some things that do lower it is reading. I'm an avid reader.
Yeah.
Like, once I get into it, it takes me a little bit to get into the book, but once I'm kind of lost in that world,
Right.
um, I find that I don't tick as much. Recently I've been trying to get back into guitar.
Okay.
So I find that, the more I'm focusing on that, I'm finding that my ticks are a lot lower.
Yeah.
I'll tick a bit before, a bit after, but it's not like I'm not necessarily sitting there holding it back. Because a lot of the time when I'm
Right.
doing tasks, I'm suppressing. But when
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading or I'm playing the guitar, I'm not suppressing. It's happening naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know necessarily that it makes that the ticks are any better than they are, but I
Right.
guess they're better because I'm not holding them back. So I guess they would
Yeah.
be better, but they might show that very similar to what they are still. But
Yeah.
for me, it's a big win because I'm not actually trying to do it.
Right. And that's such a relief in itself. So is it, have you always played, like, have you always turned to music in some way? Did you learn guitar young or?
Um, no, I got a guitar when I was 17. Tried to learn a bunch on my own, learned absolutely nothing for about 20 years.
Yeah.
And,
I feel like
and
that's
then
what we all are when we buy an instrument. Like, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to teach myself. And then it like sits in the corner for years on end.
for 20 years. So I ended up going for lessons. I decided one day I'm not going to learn unless I commit myself to it. And the best way I found to commit myself, especially with having no attention span for things, is to pay someone for private lessons. Because if you've got to go see them the next week and pay them and say, hey, guess what? We're going to do the same thing I did last week because I didn't do the stuff. That was a
Right, I
great
didn't
motivator.
practice.
Yeah, it was an amazing motivator, and it taught me the basics of what I needed, and then from
Yeah.
there I've been able to kind of build off of that. But again, as soon as I stop the lessons after 6 months, I go into phases, so I don't touch it for long periods of time, and then
Mhm.
I'll pick it up and go crazy on it and put it back down again. And every
Yeah.
time I look at it, I just hate myself for stopping.
Right. And so it's almost like anxiety, like thinking about starting it again. It's like I went so long without doing it. Why am I going to do it right now again?
Yeah, yeah. This is like overwhelming. I have to relearn everything I forgot again for the 10th.
Right. Like I have to get in that mindset all over again. Like I get that part of it. 100. I'm like that kind of with my writing. Like I love to write. I
Yeah,
absolutely love to write. I'm very self-conscious about my writing, which is ironic because one of my biggest dreams in my entire life since I was a little girl was getting a book published.
yeah.
So it doesn't always work when you're subconscious about your writing and you want everybody to also read it at the same time. Like I want you
I
to read
want
it,
the
but don't
word.
tell me anything bad.
Yeah, I want the world to read it, but not the people I know who are going to judge me.
But that's like similar things. Like I'll go so long without touching like what I want to write, and then I'm just like, well, why am I gonna start? Like you went so long without doing it. Like what makes you think you can do it? Like I start getting in the dark mindset again. I'm like a broken record, but I get to that place again. I'm like, haven't done it for so long, and so you get out of that motivation. And it's hard to like retrain your mind, like, okay, we need to do this again, like every day or every other
Yeah,
day at least.
get back into, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely tough. Yeah, but no, I guess going back, yeah, there's nothing that specifically gets rid of it, but I'd say both of those things, the reading and the guitar, were good because it got I guess it gets rid of about 80% of it because
Right.
I suppress at any given point probably about, I'd say, between 80 and 85% of my tics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if it's as bad as it normally is, but I'm not trying to suppress, I guess it cuts 80 to 85% of them out.
That and before we end and everything, I just want to go back real quick one time so I know so people know where to find you at if they want to find your YouTube channel or if there's any other social media that you want to give to everybody. You said your YouTube page is Tourette Talk with J Twitch,
Yeah,
JAY.
yeah.
Okay. And is there any other social media platforms that you wish to people to see your advocacy and everything on?
Um, no, I have a really small footprint on social media, like virtually nothing.
Okay,
I
that's
have like
probably not a bad thing.
yeah, yeah.
Well, hopefully some of the people that are watching right now find you on YouTube and find your channel and start connecting even with your videos because your story has definitely resonated with me. And again, thank you for coming and making time to speak with me today and taking time out of your day to speak with me. It's truly been a pleasure. Like I've really enjoyed talking to you today.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure for me as well.